بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Disciplining the Soul, كتاب رياضة النفس, translated by T.J. Winter. And again we have a lengthy, rich, very rich introduction, and we are still reading this introduction, and it will probably take still many other sessions, almost like a book unto itself or a booklet. We are on page 28, in the very last paragraph. We did read during the last session about the spirit, ruh, which the Quran tells the Prophet ﷺ to announce about the nature of the spirit, that is of the command of my Lord, and of knowledge you have been vouchsafed but little. الروح من أمر ربي وما أوتيت من العلم إلا قليلا. So we continue with the next paragraph. When the believer conforms to God's will, the soul, which constantly enjoins evil, is tamed. And it is tamed. It's like a wild horse. For the most part, it's going to be, you need to continue taming the soul. The animal, a horse, for example, might be tamed and for good, not the soul. Remember that if you talk about English literature, the taming of the shrew. Well, I think it's very appropriate to describe this state of the soul that needs to be tamed. So when the believer conforms to God's will, the soul, which constantly enjoins evil, is tamed, and over time grows enfeebled, unseated from its dominant place in the heart. It gives way to the soul, which blames nafs al-lawama, another Quranic term, which came to denote the active conscience stricken by guilt and self-reproach whenever God's commands are violated. And the lower soul wins a skirmish with the rational mind. After much inward labor, the nafs al-mutma'inna, the soul at peace, should predominate. These three conditions of the soul are not to be thought of as distinct stages, but rather as different aspects of potentials within the soul, which are all present simultaneously, some being latent and others active. Their relative strength is contingent upon four factors: man's inborn disposition. And here we talk about the fitra. It is not acquired, which may be good or evil, angelic or animal. His upbringing, his self-discipline in adulthood, and finally, God's grace. So again, these four factors, so the relative strength is contingent upon four factors: man's inborn disposition, fitra, which may be good or evil, angelic or animal, his upbringing, and that's number two, his upbringing, what you inculcate in his character. His self-discipline in adulthood. Now, this is how he or she faces and deals with the challenges on all levels. Self-discipline, It cannot be external. And finally, God's grace. It is the soul at peace, نفس المطمئن, which is worthy of divine acceptance. In a celebrated passage in the Quran, God exclaims, O thou soul at peace, return to thy Lord, pleasing and well pleased. Enter thou among my bondsmen, enter thou my garden. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. Uh, Some scholars said that this is general about all uh, souls at peace. Some said that while this is true, the particular occasion when the verse was revealed, some said it was when Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anh, was martyred, and some said that it was when Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh, donated, gave as a sadaqah the water well of Roma. And I think you could still visit the this endowment by Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh, in Medina, of course. The lower soul is often likened to an animal, such as a dog or donkey, whereas in early Muslim piety it was often believed, perhaps under Christian influence, that this creature should be put to death. Later generations, from about the year 200 onwards, developed the teaching that it could not be killed, but should instead be trained and disciplined. Thus, even the stubbornest horse can become a well trained steed, a necessary aid on the spiritual path. I have watched many years ago a documentary on taming and one can still find taming horses like the wild Mustang in the United States, and I think there was a comparison between two different cultures, two different regions of the world. I'm not going to specify the geographies or the name, the countries, or in one they were harsh with the animal as part of the taming, the training, and in one the other almost whispering to the horse, like a very gentle approach, simply leading the horse to trust the trainer. I think there's a beautiful message in that, the gentle method. And the Prophet ﷺ, with his own companions, he was very, very gentle, ample. We did mention this in various readings before. The lower soul is often likened to an animal, such as a dog or donkey, whereas in early Muslim piety it was often believed, perhaps under Christian influence, that this creature should be put to death. Later generations, from about the year 200 onwards, developed the teaching that it could not be killed, but should instead be trained and disciplined. Thus, even the stubbornest horse can become a well trained steed, a necessary aid on the spiritual path. Although the actual methods followed in self discipline varied considerably, most of the early ascetics stressed four practices: solitude, عزلة, silence, صمت, hunger, basically it's الجوع through practically fasting, and sleeplessness. And we will, Imam Ghazali discusses each and we'll comment as we proceed, inshallah. Solitude, al-uzla, even if pursued only on occasion, distances the seeker from worldly distractions. There was Muslims and non-Muslims who have some kind of uzla at different periods. But there is, in about a paragraph, or it's a long paragraph, we will. There's a statement that distinguishes Islamic Sufism, spirituality in this respect. So even if pursued only on occasion, distances the seeker from all the distractions. Shun people as you would shun a lion. You'll practically run away. They do say that people could reach a state, maqam, in which one they call it istihash min al-nas. That one would stop finding comfort in the company of people. And here it means the chit chat, killing time, nonsense, which ultimately might lead to backbiting. And worse. And culturally, people here, they might say something like, when they are about, they know it is backbiting, and they will make a statement ahead of uh, ill mention of people. They might say something like, I hope this is not backbiting. They might say, I pray that God would not consider it backbiting when we know it is backbiting. Yes, the human being is a social being, but one should basically be careful about how you socialize and why. So shun people as you would shun a lion was common advice, while there is little evidence that early Sufis often lived out their lives in complete hermetic hermetic isolation. Many did seek to wander alone with their Lord in deserts, islands, and mountains, after which they might return to teach, such as Imam Al-Ghazali, after 10, 11 years, went back to teach a little bit under the uh, maybe some pressure by Fakhr al-Mulk, son of Nizam al-Mulk, the vizier. This is when he returned to teach. He returned to teach in Nishab, the Nizami of Nishapur, rather than Nizami of Baghdad. But he did ask people, Arbab al-Qulub, whether he was ready, meaning this time it will not cause his ego to be inflated, that there was nothing egoistic about it. The story of Ibrahim al-Khawas wandering on a mountain in Syria, recorded below on page 61 is characteristic. Reference was often made to the Prophet's annual retreats to a mountain cave outside Mecca, where, following a long meditation, he received the divine revelation. And reading this statement, there is no, uh, there is no, uh, this is not a recipe. This is not an equation. This is not A, then B, meaning that if you meditate, you are going to receive revelation. No more revelation. The Prophet ﷺ was the last prophet, the seal of the prophets. With him, this is the very last stage of revelation, culminating the history of revelation culminated in the Quran. But here it does specify a specific period in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, when he became 40 years of age. He started, feeling comfortable doing meditations, and he would take provisions. He would take provisions for a few nights, a few days, and a few nights, and then he would go back to his wife Khadija, and he would take more provisions and go back to Ghar Hira on the outskirts of Mecca. A precedent was also found in his recommendation to withdraw in a mosque. His, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, for the last 10 days of Ramadan. And I like very much the fact that many people from different parts of the world come to Jerusalem, to Al-Aqsa Mosque, to spend the last 10 days of Ramadan. Maybe other days as well, but the very last 10 days of Ramadan. And this is extremely beautiful. See people from the United States, people from the UK, people from South Africa, from all over the world. And I hope that this is rooted in our religion. I think people should become aware of this possibility. Alhamdulillah. Unlike the desert fathers of the church, however, the Sufis normally professed a spirituality which confronted the trials of everyday life and, where possible, sought to ameliorate the lot of others. The believer who lives with people and tolerates the harm they do is better than he who does not. Regarding the who confronted the trials of everyday life, the trials are many, and this is why we say some people might look at things through their own personal lens, and some people might be successful, inshallah, to look at things from the communal lens. What's in the best interest of what are the changes to the society at large? And Imam Al-Ghazali mentioned some of those Sufis who were literally in a state of ribat, in a state of jihad, literally Sufis who were fighters as well. It's not that they went into retreat and they were passive regarding what the society goes through. And let's remember that the Sufi movements late, and if you talk about 19th century, even early 20th century, including in North Africa and other places, they fought against the colonial powers. I was watching some of those travelers. I'm interested in the narrative. So this American traveler went to Libya, to Tripoli, and in one sentence he said that Libya was occupied by the Ottomans, and he said uh, until the Italians arrived. You can see how twisted this logic. The Italians arrived, as much as the French arrived in Algeria, as much as the British arrived in Palestine, the Horn of Africa, the Italians, Iraq, and the British, Syria, Lebanon. Just remember uh, the Sykes-Picot agreement to divide the Middle East and beyond. Even Russia was party to it. People think it's only Britain and France. So yes, the Sufis were uh, um, they lived the challenges that their own communities endured. They confronted the trials of everyday life, and I think Sufism should be not only personal piety. This aspect should also be uh, an integral part, because if you talk about the economy, then they do have a say. If Sufism became tamed, in general, Sufism became tamed, whereby there, one might not speak against the injustices that go on in the society. The work here translated shows a representative attitude, the isolation which Ghazali recommends, in conjunction with the remembrance, dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and meditation. Here is fikr, dhikr wa fikr, is clearly because ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض, and tafakkur based on knowledge, um, even scientific knowledge, is extremely important. It will help you in this tafakkur, in pondering on the universe. One should really think and develop ideas, not that they are not developed, about the impact of dhikr on ethics and morality, even for public servants. So the work here translated shows a representative attitude, the isolation with which Ghazali recommends, in conjunction with the remembrance, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and meditation, fikr, is clearly meant to be practiced only for short periods. It can be achieved merely by pulling one's shirt over one's head, so you are instantly cut off from the rest of the environment in terms of seeing, an entirely solitary life while attempted by a few, could not ultimately flourish in the soil of an eminently social religion as Islam. Of course not. And we have said that it's not possible. If people did what Tawiz al-Bastami did, that all of them will go to the prairies and subsist on herbs, rest assured, that's the collapse of the society. If you can tolerate it, your wife and children, they can. It's not fair to force them into such a life. So it's a beautiful statement, and we will stop with this statement, inshallah. An entirely solitary life, while attempted by a few, could not ultimately flourish in the soil of an eminently social religion as Islam. So inshallah, this is where uh, we'll start our next session, inshallah. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.